You're listening to the Faith and Family Fellowship Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of Faith and Family Fellowship Podcast. Once again, my name is Dallas here. We have another amazing author joining us all the way from California, 𝐏𝐸𝐿𝐼. Peter, pleasure to have you here today. How you doing?
Oh, super. Thank you, Pastor Dallas. And enjoying the opportunity to be with you and your audience. I'm a Christian that had been seriously looking into the Word for a number of years. The Lord had me take some steps to get closer to Him, to draw nearer to Him, and one of those was learning to abstain, from any alcoholic beverages. As a matter of fact, I think I could say that real closeness began at that point in my life. It's about maybe now in 2018, so it'd be about 7 years ago. My wife wound up leading the family and abstaining from alcohol even before myself. But once I joined her, I realized what a blessing it was.
Right. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that, Peter.
Yeah.
You have written a book titled Rider of the Pale Horse, My 70 Days in Coma. So I'm excited to hear more about that. The title alone is like, okay, something deep is happening here. So if you could take the next couple minutes, we don't want to give too much away to the audience, but I do have some questions prepared. Tell us the beginning of this story. What happened? What led you to be hospitalized? And what led to those 70 days in a coma?
Right. I, wound up, encountering the Wuhan virus and contracting it, and was one of the first, I think, patients to realize that you can get a reoccurrence of it. I had therapeutics, monoclonal, issue with it, and it was very well treated. And I experienced relief from the virus itself. But I recontracted it again in a matter of days and was one of the first to find out what a surprise it was to know that you can, again, acquire the virus. So on my second encounter, I got very seriously ill. And was once, facing, I guess, the eternity of looking at my life looking to be curtailed. That's when the Lord appeared right in my setting in the hospital room. And that's where the journey began for me on my birthday, of all things, on my first birthday. So all of this was occurring around March of 2020, and I had entered the hospital with the idea then that I was going to be placed on a ventilator, and the odds, of course, recovering from that were pretty close to slim to none. But the Lord encountered my presence, and He was all-encompassing and loving and caring, and gave me a wonderful birthday of His own celebration for me.
Right.
And, written of in my book. But leading to the conclusion of that week, I wound up having to face some choices of whether I'd be resuscitated, to be attempted to be given, any chance to live if I wanted to, make that choice. So reflexively, I said, sure, try every method you can. And I kind of lost consciousness roughly around the middle of March of 2020. And, wound up, being in a position where I went into my coma. And that started it all, So,
when you were in this coma, you mentioned starting to experience these visions, these spiritual moments. Tell me more about this. How would somebody know that they're experiencing an encounter from the Lord versus just a good dream or something, right?
Well, what I would indicate for you is that first off, it was, it was a space and a place and time where and none could be accounted for as far as knowing what day of the week it was or anything of that sort. And I didn't need any sleep because of it, and it was always daylight. And so I was in a continuum of episodic events that was an endless loop, let's put it that way. So I never slept, and it was always daylight. Now, as far as what I could say about that instance is I never lost faith in the fact that I didn't really have a concern about what would happen next. Once I was in that space, I was comfortable in being there and encountering what I was in my visions. But I can't say that I could say that the Lord intervened or I saw him in those visions in my coma. It was episodic and events and issues that I was taken to in different places. Of course, some of the things in retrospect, I have pondered on and having written those visions down and, recognized that they would have, some sort of profound meaning maybe for others as they read it differently as what it was for me to experience it. But as an example, I traveled to various different parts of the world and the USA, Canada, places like Toronto are mentioned of in my book. I also was at the border, parts of the Panhandle in Florida, episode in Denver, then some great northwestern area that was unidentifiable to me at the time when I wrote it. So I didn't really have a depiction of a place. Right. But I was in a place where overall I could say there was no time and I didn't need any sleep because of it. And that in mind, that's how it unfolded.
Wow. In these different episodes, like you're mentioning, what was happening? What were you doing? What do you think was the design of the Lord giving this to you?
Well, I just simply would indicate that when I came out of the visions, the Lord pressed on me to write about it. But I was coming out of it as a quadriplegic. And that's the part two of my recovery in the book. Part one are my visions. And the Lord gave me the whole outline when I began to write the book. At first, I had a difficult time of thinking, where do I begin? How do I start this? And then the outline came to me. The Lord just laid out the entire book for me. And it was just unbelievable from that standpoint. Once I saw the outline that was provided, part two is my recovery. Part one was my encounter with the Wuhan virus and going into coma. And the episodes of, endless loop and that continuum situation. The Lord told me he wanted it to outline it as, 10 chapters of, 70 days and to be in a position to indicate that those were the periods that I was to put down as through the entire coma episode. So it wound up being just that. And I went into losing consciousness, I thought, about March 17th, about, several days after my birthday. And then when I came out of coma, the nurse informed me that I was in Huntington Hospital here in Southern California, and that it was May 27th. And I realized then, I quickly calculated I was in it for 70 days. And so that's just something that was, quite curious to me, but they indicated that's the time frame that I was in the coma overall.
Wow.
That's how part came, 10 chapters, so to say. And then part two is my recovery.
And as I mentioned, we don't want to give too much away, but can you share just one of those episodes that you saw without giving too much?
Oh, sure. I would indicate that one of the interesting things about it was I was on board a boat, a yacht, I would say. And after ending a celebration of sorts with the harbor master, the crowds dissipated. I'm left by myself, and I move up the gangway. I'm walking on the boardwalk, and it's still daylight, and I don't have any account of time while I encounter somebody walking towards me from a distance. And he's asking me, what am I doing on the boardwalk at this hour? And I notice he's picking up a stick. It looks tubular, like a pool stick. And he's looking aggressive as he's moving towards me, swinging this pool stick left to right, up and down. And I so happen to see one nearby as I'm walking towards him myself. And I wind up being in a position to pick it up and also engage with him as he strikes a blow towards me. And as we are dueling with the pool stick, he winds up in avoiding his hit, striking me in the back. And I fall off the boardwalk onto the sand and below. And as I lie there in pain, thinking, why would he have done so and striking me in this manner? Then, as it would turn out, I get picked up by a patrol unit of the beach area, and I'm taken to a triage. And in the triage, a male and a woman nurse are caring for my wound in the back where I was struck. And their conversation is going on as such that they recognize this work by his handprints, and this is some of the same kind of injuries that were, taking place in this area of the beach. And as I'm listening to their conversation, I'm wondering who it is that they think they've identified as the person who is the culprit in, repeating these kind of activities. Then one of the male nurses says to the other that we'll have to make a police report and, get this person off the, area and the beach area in particular. So as I recovered, from my vision, so to say, I developed a bed sore in my back that required surgery while my recovering. But this was the kind of vision that I had encompassed in an explanation as to what happened to me while I was suffering through it. But the surgeon who cared for me said, well, it's a common bed oyster, as they call it, because of the time you spent on your back in coma. So that's the kind of vision I had in correlation to a wound that I had to suffer and recover from at that time. So it's just one of the visions behind it.
Wow. How about your family? What role does your family and loved ones play during this time of such a tragic event?
Well, it was a very interesting time for them, to say the least. I was faced with having no company, and they couldn't come near me because of the concern of the virus spreading at that time. In the midst of March, you could recall we had millions around the world passing away, including here in the States. And so some of the precautions were is that no family members even were allowed into the hospital rooms. So from that standpoint, their contact with me was rather at a distance. And yet, at the same time, through Zoom, they were able to take photographs of me entering into coma. And through the coma of 70 days, I have a pictorial account that is in my book that works with my narrative in explaining what had occurred. So from their standpoint, they maintain the pictorial account, of course, never dreaming that I'd come out of it writing a book or anything like that. And as a matter of fact, as I wound up being in a position to come out of coma, I wound up writing the book in August of 2024. And with that in mind, I wound up, being able to write about it in, I guess, about a 30-day period due to the wonderful outline that the Lord had given me. Now, with that in mind, I asked at the conclusion of writing the book, I said, wow, is there any pictures about myself? And all of a sudden, there was a number of different photographs that appeared to support some of the things that, I had experienced. So it was quite interesting after I wrote the book to see the pictures that were lining up in a time frame as they were digital shots, off their Apple iPhones. And we can categorize the dates that I went into coma and then the very day that I came out of coma. So I have those also available in the book, laid out as I, revisited my period in the visions. And I thought, well, this looked like what I was experiencing here. And I tried to match it as best as I could. But it's quite interesting from that standpoint. Yeah. And that's how they participated in it. And I thank them in our dedication at the start of the book.
Yeah. Since waking up from that experience and having written the book now, what do you think? How do you view God differently, your relationship with him based on what you've experienced there?
Well, what I would say is very clearly, and when I look back and look at the encounter of recovery, the Lord was touching me all throughout that time frame. Certainly, I can indicate that I was healed in 3 different ways in my recovery. Coming in, from the visions, I was a quadriplegic, and one of the first things that I had learned was of survival in having to blink once, advised by the nurse to say yes to things and no to 2 blinks to give them as a notice of no thank you. But starting from that standpoint, you can imagine the smallest things were of great interest to me. But yet the Lord healed me spiritually first, just as the word indicates in Thessalonians 5:19. You're healed spiritually, and then you have that mental healing, and then finally you get through it all with the final physical healing in the manifestation, that takes place. But quite interestingly, one of the chapters that I have in my recovery is a chapter that I had as a dream after I came out of my visions. And it was the Lord indicating to me he was speaking to me about Matthew 24, verse 37, as in the time of Noah. These are the things that will, take place at my appearance. And so I have this dream, and then it leads me in the dream to the book of Jubilees. So curiously, I get up out of bed at this time in my recovery, and I'm thinking, well, I don't really recall reading anything in the book of Jubilees. So the Lord is prompting me to get a hold of it. And I happen to have a book in my library, unread, which I never had read before. So with that in mind, I started perusing through there, and there were a number of things that the Lord revealed that he wanted me to be aware of. Namely, one of them was that at Noah's entering the ark, he had been given in the book of Jubilee a book of medicines handed down from Enoch's time. And those revealed some minerals that the Lord was interested in seeing me take. So I write about that in the recovery.
Wow.
You're listening to the Faith and Family Fellowship Podcast. We'll be right back after this quick word from our sponsors.
One of the biggest lies ever told is that when people die, that they naturally go to heaven. However, heaven is not automatic. This booklet, Heaven Not Automatic, explains the gospel of Yeshua and includes the prayer of salvation. Give this gift of love to all that you know and share everywhere you go as the time is near for the Lord's return. Find this book and other resources at heavennotautomatic.com.
Do you have questions about your faith, Christianity, end times, or anything related to pursuing a relationship with God that need to be answered? From anywhere in the world, you can tune in to stjohn316.blogspot.com, a blogspot where writer Douglas believes no question is too hard, with various links with Bible studies, devotionals, mission support, prayer requests, and end times. You can find all the answers you are looking for as Douglas uses biblical truth to lead you in the right direction. Search stjohn316.blogspot.com today.
Writing this book, what would you say for those readers today, or maybe the hearers on our podcast today? What would be the overall message for them to take away from this, or maybe to encourage them if they've experienced something like this, or maybe a loved one is experiencing something right now?
Well, I would just say very clearly that, of our blood covenant that we have, in the Lord, that we're the children of promise to a spiritual Israel, as well as children of promise to a physical Israel. And under that covenant are enormous blessings bestowed on us beyond our imagination, and certainly mine, for recognizing what had happened to me in the spirit, body, and soul. One of the other aspects of this is that in my recovery and in that book of Jubilee, it was pointed out that Abraham was given the language again of Hebrew by an angel, and that he was to learn it because it was a language lost from the time of the flood. And in my recovery, one of the quiet moments I have with the Lord is that he's asking me to learn Hebrew. And so I, have obliged him and learned Hebrew and wound up studying it. And this was before I came to the book of Jubilee. So when I read that Abraham wound up being in the position to do the same in the winter, rainy seasons, I headed that chapter up in calling it the winter of my season. And it was just unbelievable to see that in print, that the Lord had asked me to learn Hebrew, on my recovery. So that was my mental healing, where he healed me mentally in learning the word and learning it in the language that he prefers to me, have it as a language to know and read. So
Thank you for sharing that. Are you mentioning that you have a second book that talks about the recovery, or the recovery is a second part within the book?
Yeah, it's the second part within the book. Yeah, that's the second part. And that's where it's, quite exciting from the standpoint that, if I finally go through the physical healing of, getting back to walking again and so forth. I had forgotten everything, Dallas. I'd forgotten how to swallow. I'd had to relearn how to, do everything from the beginning. And that's, again, categorized in photographs, a pictorial account of my recovering in the physical realm, in the rehabilitation process. So
I'm glad you're here. Look how far you've come, right? Now you're able to be on the podcast and share the things.
The other thing too is, when I recovered, I was under 100 pounds when I recovered from my coma. So I'd lost, let's call it half my weight, and got down to under 100 pounds. And so part of the process of the rehabilitation was, trying to gain back my weight, with the solid foods, because I had been sustained throughout the 70-day period and such on liquid foods altogether. So it was a complete recovery in every sense of the word, but the physical side of it was the last part of it believe me, it was the first was the spiritual side, just as it is, depicted in Thessalonians.
Right.
That sense, it was actually in the same order, and so that's what I really found, quite marvelous to understand.
Yeah.
And that's where I would say that's where the hope is for any reader, to enjoy recognizing that this was a threefold recovery. It wasn't just simply physical, and it cannot be, with the Lord's involvement.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Peter, for sharing all of these things. And again, we don't want to give too much away, so we're going to bring the interview to a close here. If you could leave the audience with one overall piece of hope, what do you think that would be today?
I would just indicate for you that just as it's depicted in the start of my book, the things that the Lord has in mind, that the heart has not even imagined. And that is the most important thing that I could leave with anyone involved in recovering or facing a difficulty, is that the Lord's imagined greatness for us in believing in Him and having His, bestowed love for us is just without bounds.
Yeah.
And I'm a living proof of that, because as I've recovered from the Wuhan virus, it's only been, an unbelievable journey from beginning to end.
Well, again, thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. Tell us one more time, what is the title of your book and how do we connect with you?
Right. It's My 70 Days in Coma. It's the Rider on the Pale Horse. It's a website that I have, My 70 Days in Coma.
Thank you very much.
Great website to get a hold of me and, be in touch with anything else.
Yeah. I want to encourage the audience that the link is in the description below, and they can always check on that, click on that, purchase the book, review it, all those other things, so that this book continues to touch other people. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day.
I will. Baruch haba.
You've just listened to the Faith and Family Fellowship Podcast. Faith and Family Fellowship Podcast was recorded live in studio with final editing made before uploading. Subscribe today to Faith and Family Fellowship Podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Don't miss the next episode on Faith and Family Fellowship Podcast.